Hello, everybody. My name is Davia. I want to share something with you today that I've attempted to share. I don't know how many times I've attempted to record this now. I'm going to share with you today what happened, what I experienced with my car accident. So the car accident happened about 2 years ago, March 10th, 2018. And this, I'm not going to define it. I'm not going to give it a label. I'm just going to tell you what it was I experienced. So, first of all, I do not remember the accident. Still to this day, I do not have a memory of the accident. I have had one dream where I feel like I saw the beginning part of the accident, but as soon as I see the lights coming at me and the impact and I hear the screeching sound, everything goes white. So I really don't know, because nothing has come back to me yet. What happened so the accident happened about 12:30 in the morning, and I didn't come to for about 4.5 hours, but I do have these glimpses of coming in and out of consciousness that I kind of just like give you the visual of this. Is like, and I'm back out again. And during this in and out of consciousness, two of the memories that I have, one of them is being in the room with the guys who hit me and hearing their conversation with the doctors. And I remember the doctor asking him if he had been drinking, and he said no, he hadn't. And then I think inside my head, liar. And then I hear the doctor say, well, there's alcohol in your blood. And then I have the thought of, when they come ask you these questions, just don't answer, because I couldn't remember anything. So I didn't want to somehow accidentally incriminate myself, because I had no memory of what was happening or what had happened. But they never came and talked to me as they walked out the room, or they just walked by me. They never asked me those questions. And I thought at the time, oh, phew. Another one of the memories I have is being pushed into a circular shape and knowing that it was, I was getting an MRI. The first thing I remember saying is hearing someone's footsteps in my room and calling out and asking for them to hold my hand, which at the time I thought was just kind of sweet and funny, because I was very afraid and so I wanted comfort. But as more time has gone on, I realized how pivotal that was. That's the very first thing I asked for, is I need connection. I need to be grounded back into where I was. And feeling someone place their hand in my hand and then thinking, does this belong to a man or a woman? And yeah, I'm out again. I don't know who put their hand in my hand. It was a doctor or a nurse to comfort me during this time. And then I woke up like the next day when people were visiting me. Some friends and family had now started to come to the hospital to visit me. And they were asking me what I remembered. And I was telling them what I just told you. And there was a nurse in the room at the time as I'm telling them this memory of being in the room with the people who hit me. And she corrects me. She interrupts the story and she says, oh, there's no way that would happen. We would never have two car accident victims in the room together. They would be in their own rooms. At the time, I thought to myself, sure, lady, like, we're at a different part of the hospital now. That was ER. Like, I didn't really connect anything about it. I just shrugged off what she said. And it wasn't until 9 months later that I had to go get another MRI, because every disc on my neck was herniated and my arms had stopped working. And so I went to go get more tests to see what was going on. And now getting an MRI conscious, I realized in that moment, now it's 9 months later, oh, shit, this is not my memory. Like, I realize as I'm now having another MRI, my memory is seeing my body being pushed into this circular shape. That was what my memory was. And so it wasn't until 9 months later that I realized some of those memories I had, I was not in my body. I don't tell people that I've had a near-death experience because I do not remember. the majority of what I experienced, but I do know that part of that time I was not in my body. But I will tell you what it was that I have experienced. So while I was in the most physical pain of my life that I've ever been in, it was so much physical pain, my brain couldn't even register in the beginning that I was in pain. It was just extreme discomfort, like being screamed at from the inside out. And at the same time, I am feeling bliss. It's the only word I can kind of find to describe what I'm feeling. It is the feeling of divine love. And I was in this feeling or emotion for 2 weeks after the accident very strongly. And then again for about a month, but I did notice it started to subside around 2 weeks in. And around a month later, it was not nearly as strong as the first month. But I would say overall, that feeling sort of stayed with me, glimpses of it, for about a year. And the other thing that I noticed was before this accident, I was dealing with a lot of anxiety. I had been dealing with anxiety for about 7 years, really strong, and it was just increasing. And there wasn't anything I could figure out how to help myself. I had been prescribed anti-anxiety, antidepressant meds at least 3 different times in my life. I never took them. I never filled them. The anxiety was a sense of I'm behind and always having this feeling that I'm here to do something, some purpose, some mission, something. I'm supposed to be doing something and not knowing if I'm doing it or if I'm fulfilling it. And this gave me a lot of anxiety because I felt this feeling my whole life. And once the accident happened and I woke up, there was this sense of, how could I have ever doubted? I knew, there was this inner knowing that I was doing it, that I was on track, that all was well. And I almost laughed at thinking I could ever think otherwise. There was no, it was this, the knowing was so strong that I laughed that I ever doubted. And since then, I would say the biggest thing I've gotten from the accident is this intuitive sense or knowing. I first noticed it as like this knowing that even though this looked bad, what I had gone through, I actually had gotten a level up. That's what I was calling it, a level up. And like if I were in a video game, this had just gotten me to the next level. That's the best way I can describe it. Even though it looked really bad and felt very bad, I also knew that something good had just happened for me. And I didn't know what that level up was or what that meant for a while. I just knew. And also for about a month before the accident, I was having maybe you could call like a premonition or a sense as I was approaching intersections. And I never remember having this in my life, this concern or worry. As I was approaching intersections, I would look to the right to make sure the cars had stopped. And once I woke up in the hospital and they told me what happened, I went, oh, that's why. And the nurse was like, that's why what? And I'm like, never mind. Like I knew she wasn't gonna understand what I was talking about. But for about a month before the accident happened, I kept catching myself looking to the right to make sure cars had stopped before I entered the intersection. And I found out maybe like 5 or 6 months later, once we got the police report, that is exactly how the car accident happened. They ran a red light and T-boned my car. So there was this, first that premonition, this inner knowing that something good had happened and that I had gotten a level up. And then I began to notice like an ability to perceive energy. So if someone walked in the room and they had positive energy, I would feel it light up in my body. I would feel my body light up. And also if they had negative energy, I would feel myself shut down, that I would have to just go to sleep. And I thought, this is strange, you know. I thought at first it's because I had injured my brain. I had sustained a concussion, and before my accident I was very analytical and I relied probably too much on my brain. That's, you know, we're taught in society to trust this way more than this. And so part of my questioning was, oh, it's because I had injured my brain. So now I'm feeling what's going on. I can't rely on this as much. But as more time went on, I began to realize, like, this is just part of what's occurred with the car accident, is this heightened sense of we could call it intuition, we could call it the gift of discernment, an ability to perceive energy. And while overall I'm very grateful for this, it's also in some ways been challenging because I can no longer make a decision that doesn't feel right. So I think before my accident, there were many times in my life where I made choices that were dishonoring. They weren't choices made from my higher self. They were choices that I made for approval or to be liked or to be accepted by others, to not rock the boat, to not have contention. And after the accident, I can no longer make choices that dishonor myself. If I do, I feel it until I course correct. I do not have peace. I do not have, I cannot sleep. It is just constantly on me until I course correct and get back into coherence. And so while I am very grateful for it, it is rather challenging because many times people do not understand, and they are in judgment of me as they are interpreting me as ignorant or uninformed or biased or any other label that you could think of. If you're not in agreement with me, I have been called these things: dangerous, privileged, ignorant. But I have to surrender that people are going to judge me when they don't understand, because I have to follow my own heart. I have to live with myself. I can't live for your approval of me anymore. And so I have begun to make decisions more from this place in my life, which overall I'm very, very grateful for. And I have surrendered that people will fall by the wayside. In fact, that's been a big part of the experience thus far. Is I would say 95% of my social circle has sort of fallen by the wayside as we are no longer in coherence. And I think before the accident, this would have really hurt me, or I would have felt bad about this, but I no longer feel that same level of attachment because I follow the energy of peace and love and have to be in coherence with my own heart, follow my own heart. Let's see what else has happened. I no longer had a sense of, let's call it neediness, or feeling lonely. There are many moments that I'm alone. Like right now I'm alone. I've been spending most of my time alone since the car accident because other people's energy was maybe too overwhelming to be around for me. I had to focus on my own healing, and they were taking away from that as I had to share my energy with them, or that they somehow took of my energy. And so before the accident, you know, there was a sense of neediness or wanting to find someone to be in relationship. And I would settle. I would settle for a lot of relationships that weren't really in alignment with me, but I was afraid to be judged. I was afraid people would think something's wrong with me because I was almost never in relationship. I always had a lot of friends and a lot of friends with benefits, but I never had like a real serious relationship until I was 26. And then I would say all the relationships that I had between that moment until now, they were dishonoring in some way, but I continued to put up with this energy, and because fear of being judged or fear of being alone. And then it wasn't until the last relationship that I was like, it is so much better to be alone than to be in the wrong relationship. And the accident happened, and this feeling of neediness gone, this you could even say my sexuality died in the car accident. I no longer had this desire to connect with someone if it was just on a certain level. I am looking for something very specific now, something of a certain energy, and I'm not willing to settle for anything less than that. I am looking for a deep, spiritual, intimate connection, and anything that is just of the vibration of pleasure or lust or physicality is no longer desirable to me. And so that was also a change. But overall, I feel very grateful for that change, because it can be lonely. Life can be lonely when we're in this mindset of I need someone to complete me. And we keep searching and having bad experiences one after another as we're with someone for the wrong reasons. So I've been very grateful for that as well. But overall, I would say the biggest thing I've gotten from the car accident is this heightened sense of intuition and ability to discern. I have a motto that I've lived by for a number of years now, that I consider everything but believe nothing. I saw beliefs as lines that can sort of damn us. The definition of damnation is a halt in progression. So if we believe something, the mind believes, but the heart knows. And there's a difference between the energy of believing something and when truth hits. And so that's what's been very interesting as I have sort of lived life since the car accident, is these two things are in more coherence than I've ever had before. And having to honor my heart over any outside authority or anybody's approval, or allowing it to be okay if people don't understand me and they misjudge me because they don't understand me, or if we're not in agreement or coherence anymore. Like, I've allowed many of my relationships to go on our own paths because we are no longer in coherence, and I have no attachment to that anymore. I am only interested in a certain energy or vibration, and that is of integrity and authenticity and of love and light. And if someone is in judgment or blame or ego or fear, I no longer desire to be around this energy. So I think I have summarized the bulk of what I have experienced post-accident. I have been able to heal without drugs, without pharmaceuticals, without surgery. I have been able to do this by following my heart and my intuition. The way I found my chiropractor was through inner knowing. He just popped into my head one day out of the blue. And even though it made zero rational sense to begin to see him, as his office is 2 hours away from where I lived, I knew that the way he popped into my consciousness was a sign. And as I went and met him for the first time, there was something about his eyes and his energy that I resonated with. And I knew also before this moment, like after my car accident, I knew that I needed to find someone like a spiritual mentor, someone to help me integrate or understand what it was I was experiencing, because it was very different than what I was experiencing before. And I didn't know that my chiropractor was going to become this person, but I found out after a few months of working with him that he also was in a car accident with a drunk driver, that he had broken his neck, that he had had what you would call a near-death experience in that. And since that moment, he has been able to help other people heal. And once he told me this, like a few months after I began working with him, I was like, what? Why didn't you tell me this? Because we had this thing in common of, injuring our nervous system, our spine, and having these, maybe you would call them abilities to perceive energy. I don't know what to call it. And so he's been able to help me understand better what it is that I'm experiencing, help me understand better energy and vibration. And there's a quote by Tesla. It's something like, if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy and vibration or frequency or something like that. And never before my accident did I give as much credence to what that means until the accident happened. And now I'm perceiving life different than I ever did before. Because I don't remember the accident, and I haven't been telling people that I've had a NDE. I did start to go study NDEs though, and I listened to a number of books on audio tape, and listened to like many interviews of people who have had near-death experiences and what they remember. And even though I don't remember mine or what I went through, all I have is this feeling of bliss, divine love, and a heightened sense of discernment or ability to perceive energy. As I heard these testimonials, they resonated so strongly as truth. And then it's led to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And that's how I feel like I've been able to navigate during this whole thing that we're going through now. Is I came upon the work of Dolores Cannon while studying these near-death experiences. And she talks about this time now. She got the work, she's written like 13 books or manuscripts, and it talks about this time that we're in right now, and the great awakening that's happening, and this split of 3D to 5D that the earth is going through, this ascension process. And I listened to this work, the first time maybe a year and a half ago, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. And it wasn't until we began this whole thing that's happening now that information has come back into my consciousness as very pertinent. Same with Ra, the law of one. They mention this time period that we're in. They talk about the harvest and how souls, we have been evolving. And they talk about this time in the scriptures and revelations. Part of, I think, that the thing that I'm grateful for about my mind and the way my mind works is because I consider everything and believe nothing, I attempt to remain open and study multiple schools of thought between science and spirituality. I grew up very religious, so that's its own kind of paradigm. I look at woo-woo stuff like astrology and numerology and philosophy. I studied psychology for my master's program. I got a master's degree in spiritual psychology. So I have been very curious about a number of topics, and then becoming an artist and using symbology in my work to express my ideas. I am observing pattern that exists in all of these different schools of thought, and if I look at them all as symbolic rather than literal, I can hone in on the vibration that connects everything. And what I observe is happening right now is everything is overlapping and coming to the same point. We are all coming to the same point. And my car accident happened exactly 2 years before behavior changed in Los Angeles. To the date, exactly 2 years before. I now realize what I went through was to help wake me up, to be of service now as we go through this process of ascension and awakening that's occurring on the planet. I had to go through something very painful and hard. Essentially, I am a new person. I was reborn after this experience. Many of us are going to have to go through this same process now. Each new thing that they throw at us that happens is going to wake up more and more people, and it's also going to harden more people. Pain is for change, to experience more loving. Unfortunately, this is how we learn. I wish it were easier. I've set the intention to learn in a more graceful way from here on out, because I don't wish what I went through upon upon anyone. It was literally the hardest thing I've ever experienced. I get asked all the time, is your body back to normal? I have a different body now. I don't know if there's a back to normal to ever get to. I just learned to adapt with what I have now. And it's the same for what we're going through in this moment. We all have to adapt. We all have to come into our heart and have these two be in coherence. The mind believes and the heart knows. Truth resonates different than lies. Lies are confusing. Deception is confusing. Truth is clear. But the only way for you to know truth is to study and look at multiple points of view, to look at multiple narratives. And they've made that very challenging, because anything they don't want you to look at, they're going to give it a label. They're going to call it dangerous, conspiracy theory, false information. They have all sorts of labels to get you to think, yeah, I won't look at any of that. But this is a time where we have to remain open and look at all the different points of view in order to know which of those is truth, because some of them will resonate differently. And you'll never know unless you go look. So we are in the midst of something we have never gone through. And in many ways, it is going to be challenging and it's going to test us. But you chose to be here right now. You chose to be here as we go through this experience. This is the most exciting time to be alive and to be on earth as we go through this process of ascension. I'm so grateful for what it is I've gone through, so that I can now have this sense, this gift, this point of view. I'm here for anyone who has any questions or needs to find a place of peace in the midst of all this. I'm here for you. I send you love and I send you light. And I encourage you to shine your light. And however it is that you do, we need more love and light on this planet than ever before. We need to let go and surrender anything that's holding us back, any fear-based thoughts or paradigms, any negative emotions, any trauma that we've gone through, anywhere we're judging someone else or blaming someone else. All these things have to be forgiven. And the way we forgive them is by forgiving ourselves through compassionate self-love. As we forgive ourselves for these misbeliefs that we've taken on, we have to relearn and unlearn everything that we've been taught. It's all just partial truths. It requires courage. It requires faith. It requires an open mind. But we can do it. And we are doing it. There are people waking up every day on this planet. More and more people are waking up. Every day I get people who come into my DMs thanking me. And I thank you back. I'm so grateful to see that you resonate, to see that we are in coherence and vibration, a matching frequency. We're going to continue to split, and you will have to choose to come into this vibration. Know that if you are in fear, judgment, or any negative vibration, you have believed something that holds you back. You have to let all these things go and come back into the vibration of love. Get into nature. Get back into your heart. Send you love as we go through this process together.